Hey there, folks. It's Al Kenny here. Thank you for joining me for this short video where I'm going to blow up the primary illusion and open up the biggest possibility that sits at the heart of my Live Into Your Brilliance philosophy. And it is something that's been pointed at by many people, many parts of society, all the way through time. And yet, for many of us, it is the number one thing we miss. I know it was for me. And so I'm excited to show it to you. Now, I know that I'm not going to be able to communicate, I guess, the full depth of this in this video. However, I am going to ask you to come at this with an open mind. Be super curious. Because what I believe I'm going to put on the table for you now has the ability to transform how you experience your life and how you create your life as you move forward, whether that is creating it on the outside in terms of going after your dreams, your goals and ambitions, or the experience you have on the inside where people are looking for more freedom, more joy, more happiness, more calmness, more contentment. Because I'm going to tell you now that all of those feelings are on offer right now, and that you can then play the game of creation in the world from that place without it needing to be anything. And ultimately opening up the possibility that right here and now will always be your favorite place to be, even in the challenging times. So let's get into it and let's get after what is the premise of Live Into Your Brilliance, which is shining a light on the innate brilliance of human beings, that is you, and blowing up the thought-created illusions that get in our way. So I'm just going to pop this on here. So hopefully you can also see this in the top of the screen. And I want you to follow me as I go through this and do some of the exercises as we go along, because I'm going to point in a particular direction. And for me, it is true, like capital T true. But I'm not going to ask you just to believe me. I want you to be curious, see what you see for yourself. And then if you'd like to know more, you can either reach out to me or you can check in on some of my other content, which explores this from different perspectives. So this is about setting some of the foundations, like really going to what sits at the heart of living into your brilliance. And what I'm going to go through today, I say all the time that if this was the only thing I had, this would be enough to be able to keep coming back to it. Every single person said this, if we just keep exploring this, this is going to open up a world of possibilities for you. And I start with a sentence that for most people is pretty challenging. I always say it's the best news that just sometimes doesn't sound like the best news you've ever heard, which is, it is always you, only 100% of the time. And the reason why that's challenging is because people go, well, hang on. So you're saying it's my fault for everything that happens and everything that shows up in my life. I'm like, no, absolutely not. You're neither at fault nor in control of what happens outside of you. And life, as we know, has a great way of throwing up all sorts of interesting curveballs and fastballs. But what I am saying is that you are the creator of your reality. You are the creator of your experience. You are the source of your entire world, even though sometimes it doesn't look like that. And so this is not about blame. This is about stepping into that deepest responsibility in order to set yourself up to have the life that you would love right now. So let's get into what I mean by this. Well, the first thing is, and I said this at the outside, I said this at the outset. There is an outside and there is an inside. You know, there's things that we'd all love to go and create on the outside, businesses we want to build, teams, relationships, adventures we want to go on, stuff we want to have and hold, and places we want to go. And that's all great, except for the fact that most people, or a lot of people, set it up in a way which is, I have to get to those things, I have to create that in order for me to be the way that I would love to be, in order for me to have the feelings I would love to feel, in order for me to be complete and whole and perfect. And it's totally innocent because it's what we've been told from a very young age. Except it's just not true. And we know it's not true. If we were prepared to really look, we know it's not true, because I bet as you're watching this, you can reflect on having gotten some of those things, and yet the experience didn't last, or it wasn't the experience you expected. And if it was true, then we'd have to experience everything the exact same way. Or you might have noticed how, have you ever gone to the cinema with someone and you come out and it's like you went to see two different movies? So what I'm saying is, it's not that there isn't an outside, like independent of ourselves. There is. But we are the ones that are creating our experience of that. So our reality is a completely unique and subjective reality. And our outside world is essentially a projection of our inner world. And that's really good to know, because what that means is you can have all the feelings you want on the inside and then go and create everything you would love on the outside. But let's run a quick experiment just to see how true this is. So I'm going to show you a number of pictures. I just want you to notice what you notice. So here we go. Picture number one. I'm just going to move through these every couple of seconds and just notice what comes up in your mind and your body. What did you notice? Did you notice any thoughts going through your mind at different images? Any feelings come up? Do you think that if you were in a group and we were in a group together, that everyone would have had the same thought and feeling for every picture? Me neither. Like, I always end with Marmite, because Marmite's one of those, or Vegemite. People go, you either love it or you hate it. And we immediately connect with those. So it's just about waking us up to, hang on, yeah, like the outside world can show up however it wants, but we're always having a unique experience. How does that work? Well, the truth is, it's really simple and really powerful. We have a thought, and it's through the power of thought that we see the world. We create our world. We create our reality through the power of thought. And we feel our thinking. We experience our reality through our senses. That is how we create our world. And I always point to my wife for some reason on this, because it's one of my favorite places to go, because I can realize that in the space of a few minutes, I can go from seeing her as being annoying and unreasonable to being the cutest person who I love more than anyone else. And it's just a thought away. So we are only ever one thought away from a fresh reality, a fresh experience. And as I will dive into in other videos, our feeling system is the most incredible guidance system, helping us to see exactly where we are and pointing us in a direction of travel that will serve us the most. Our feelings have nothing to do with the outside world, really. They're telling us about the quality of the thinking we have relative to the outside world. So let's run another experiment, just so you can see this for yourself, or notice what you notice again. So let's start with your favorite memory. Like, I would love for you to close your eyes. Pause the video if you want at the end of this. Take a couple of minutes. But close your eyes and think of what is one of your favorite memories. Maybe it was an amazing holiday or party, or your child being born, or a wedding, or a big achievement, or it can be anything you want. But I want you to really go there. Hear the sounds, see what you see. And when you're ready, open your eyes. What do you notice? How do you feel right now? Were you getting some of those good feelings that you had at that time? Isn't that interesting? And here we are. I don't know where you're sat. I'm sat in my office recording this video. And yet for a brief second there, I was in Orlando, Florida with my kids when they were much younger, pushing them around a lazy river and knocking people out of their ones. And my son's called it my mad daddy moment. And then you can also do the other side. Like, can you think of a time when you were angry or sad? Maybe the last time you were pissed off. Like, go there now. Close your eyes again and think about, like, when was the last time I got really annoyed? Or what makes me angry? Just try and make yourself angry. What makes me angry? And connect with those thoughts. And see if you notice again what you notice. And come back. Open your eyes when you're ready. Do you notice a shift in your being? Shift in your experience? And yet we're still just sat in the same place. And that's where this starts to become really interesting. It's like we are not experiencing the world. We are experiencing our thinking about the world. And we can change our minds whenever we want. And that is one of the greatest opportunities for us, is to know that we can pause and we don't have to believe all of our thinking. We are not our thinking. We are the awareness within which our thinking is happening. And that is how we create our reality. There's an amazing definition of a human being, which comes from one of my mentors, Mavis Karn, which is that human beings are pure, intelligent energy in form, this body, with the ability to create our own experience and observe ourselves doing so. Well, that's what I'm talking about here. How we can notice the reality and the experience that we're creating for ourselves. And we can choose to let go of one in any moment, and a new and fresh thought will come through, and we will have a whole new experience. Excuse me. So now we start to see, okay, well, maybe it does work from the inside out. And okay, like perhaps you can see, and again, like I know that this perhaps is a lot to take in straight away. I can see that my thinking changes and my experience changes as my thinking does. But how does that enable me to create the world that I would love to create? Like, how can I tap into that? What's on offer there? Well, you see, we all have a life that we can observe and see. And for a lot of the time, sometimes we can go, this is not exactly the way I would love it to be. We see a new and fresh possibility. And this is where this question, how have I created this, comes into play. But I really want you to hold it lightly, not with blame or judgment, but with curiosity. How have I created this? I'll come back to my wife example, my wife, Sean. Let's just say we have had an argument. And when I'm out of my power, I'm pointing the finger of blame at her. Oh, she's been this and she's been that. But when I come back to the question of how have I created this? Well, then I can see, well, who was I being? I was being impatient, judgmental. What actions did I take from there? I probably raised my voice. I maybe interrupted her. I didn't listen. Now, was she doing anything? Of course she was. She was saying stuff as well. But I have no control over that. But when I come back to what is it that I would love to create? What is it that's alive in me? What would I love to create in this moment? And in those moments, it's often just love us to be in a better feeling, to be more connected. Doesn't mean there might not be something for us to talk about. Often there is, but we can't talk about it from that angry place. So when I think, well, I would love to create more connection, who would I be? I would be loving. I would be curious. I'd be more compassionate and understanding. And what's the intuitive action that comes to mind from there? Well, the intuitive action that comes to mind often is a hug or a smile or some laughter, something to just depower the situation. And it often works because I've found that it's very hard for other people to stay in a bad humor with me when I keep showing up from a really loving way of being. Just in the same way, I find it really hard to stay in a low mood when someone shows up in a consistently loving way with me. And we can apply this to any part of our life. I even had one client that said to me, well, I've got one that'll challenge this. And he said, I have an apartment in Twickenham in London and it's been flooded, and this person's based in America now. Are you telling me that I created that? I said, yeah, I am. And he's like, how can I have created my apartment being flooded? And I said, well, you're not responsible. You're not to blame for the actual flooding of your apartment. But I was like, how did you end up owning a flat in that flat in the first place? Who were you being then? And he was like, well, I was being an investor. I was being mindful of my future. Like, okay, so you bought the apartment. And he was like, yeah, okay. So in one sense, we can see how you created it is you bought the apartment. Now, how are you creating your experience? And he was creating his experience through the thought that it shouldn't be happening. And so he was angry and frustrated. And from there, he was having a really tough experience. I said, well, what would you love to create? And he said, I just want a hassle-free investment. I was like, okay, well, who would you need to be? If you had that, who would you be? It's like, I'd be calm. I'd be relaxed. I was like, okay, can you be calm and relaxed now? Which he then settled into that way of being. I was like, what comes to mind as an action you could take to create that? And then he had 2 or 3 things. Well, I think it was only 1 or 2 steps. Like, oh, I could do this and I could do that. It's like, do you think that might be helpful? He's like, well, yeah, it's worth a shot. And he was off. And he'd moved out of resistance into acceptance and then real ownership. And from a place of connection to his being, his intuitive wisdom showed up. And I'm asking you all to consider the power of your intuitive wisdom, whether you call it gut, whether you call it instinct, whether you call it your wisdom, your knowing. We all have it. And that's what allows us, when we can be present to ourselves, when we can be present to the moment. And from this place, we always know exactly what we are meant to do next, the very next step. So with this, what we want to start looking at is, it's really a choice of where do we stand. Do we put ourselves in a powerless position of blame? It's not me, it's the outside world, and if that was different, then I'd be different. Or do we put ourselves in a powerful place of responsibility, which is, this is all great. Like, it might not be my preferred thing, but I can accept it. And I can be in my power and go, well, what would I love to create from here? And that changes everything. And this is what living into our brilliance really means. Because I am all for creating. I want for myself and all my clients to create amazing worlds on the outside and the inside. You know, sometimes in some spiritual conversations, it's so much about, well, once you've found calmness, there's nothing to do on the outside. And what I think they're often pointing at is there's nothing you need to do on the outside to feel the way you'd like to feel. But it seems to me we are called to do lots of things on the outside. And yet we hold ourselves back from them because we're so caught up in our heads. And this work is about quietening that down so that we play the game outside of ourselves from a whole different place. And this brings me to the final piece, because when I talk to people about this, a really interesting thing happens. I'm like, okay, well, if I am the creator of my world and my experience, then I surely must be able to create a perfect experience. And the answer is, that would be lovely. Although even I'm quite suspicious as to whether or not that would be true. Because we don't know what thought is going to cross our mind from one moment to the next. We're not really in control of our moods. Our moods go up and down. But we can notice where we're at, and we can choose how we respond from there. So it's not really a game of trying to find the perfect thought feeling so that we're always in a high mood, or that we're always in the feeling that we'd love. But it's about knowing, well, I can know where I'm at in any moment. And once I know where I'm at, I can choose what to do next. And it's about seeing that life is life. Life's true nature is one where there are ups and downs. We get curveballs and straight balls and fastballs all the time. And the more that we can be in acceptance of our true nature and of life's true nature and play the field in front of us, the more we experience everything we want to experience. And the more that we see that we have everything we need to live the life that we would love to live. The more that we see our innate brilliance, the less we need to chase anything, because nothing is going to be better than here. And yet everything will be different. It's inevitable. And so we get into that game of creativity, not because we need it to be anything, but just because that's what we want to do. So for me, when we talk about living into our brilliance, we are talking about everything, like the inside game and the outside game. And it all lives right here. And so if you're someone who knows that there's more on offer for them, that is great. And if you're curious to understand what is there to be seen, then come deeper into this world, come deeper into this conversation, because I'm telling you now that everything you are looking for is much closer at hand than you think it is. And that even what you think you might want or need, that just might be the lure that's trying to take you in a direction that's going to open up a whole world of possibilities that you can't even imagine yet. Now, how cool would that be? To know that the world that we can make up in our minds is only a fraction of the possibility that actually exists if we let go and go all in on our brilliance. If there's any part of this video that has triggered you to want to challenge me, to want to ask me a question, please come engage with me. You can send me an email to al@alkenny.org. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, on Instagram. You can put a comment here on this video. I will answer. I would love to have a conversation with you. Or you can book a discovery call with me whenever you want, which is an exploration of what's on offer for you. And if the link for that would be on my website, alkenny.org. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I look forward to seeing you again in the future.